Hey everybody, I'm Tracy, and starting in like 2021, you saw this explosion within the crypto sphere about play to earn, right? Which was basically platforms that would issue some kind of financial reward for activities taken upon the said platform, right? And that usually came in the form of like token distributions, other rewards, loot boxes, the like, right? And that is probably its own sort of video of what play to earn really means, but it's largely fallen out of favor for like play to own and other models, which I'll talk about in the future. But the reasons are, right, to the extent they still exist, which they do, and they exist in crazy, weird spaces. Like you see this, I've talked about, these like slot machines that pay out real cash. Like those are based on these really archaic kind of play to earn models, right? So you see all the cease and desist flying and people trying to stop, or states trying to shut them down. But nevertheless, in crypto, play to earn fails for three reasons. One, it's the token risks. Okay. So if you are issuing tokens, right, and it's basically like an inflationary token distribution, and you have a common enterprise relying on the activities of others, you have basically satisfied the Howey test in the most purest form possible, right? So any sort of reward that you're gaining out of play to earn is effectively the issuance of a security. And of course, you're not adhering to any level of securities law, and that can be a problem, right? Now you can double down, and obviously, any transfer of crypto is also subject to CFTC regulation, which really focuses more on the manipulation aspect, right? Like the fairness of it. And so you can see with a lot of these games, is it provably fair, things like that. There's that risk that when the rewards are not evenly or equally distributed, then you're running afoul of the Commodities Act. And there's ways to mitigate that, right? Like you can obviously get rid of inflationary token issuances. You can create sort of a captive ecosphere where the token doesn't have value outside of the ecosystem. But that typically doesn't really work, right? And, because you keep out the speculators and really, as a whole, right, and this speaks more to the CFTC, the economics of many play to earn models is very Ponzi like, right? Like you have newer users paying rewards of older users, right? And so that's how these things kind of keep going. Second, you have MSB MTL issues, like let's call them payment law issues, right? And that is because most of these play to earn models adopt like a custodian model, right? Like they have custody of the wallet, the private keys. And on top of that, they facilitate transfers, right? Between players, between the platform and the player. And then sometimes even accommodate conversions, right? Like where it's like USDC to native token, whatever the case may be. Well, all three of those will trigger at a minimum FinCEN money service business registration requirements, right? And at a maximum state level money transmission license requirements. And, it's always sort of just a good idea because the definition of money transmitter at the FinCEN level is so broad that you register, but obviously the impact, which I've said a million times before, of registering as an MSB, like the only practical effect of it is that now you're subject to KYC and AML regulations, which is going to be very difficult to adhere to for like your shoot 'em up game on the App Store, right? So that's the other thing. And then obviously state level, licensing is something that quite frankly you probably don't want to get into, right? It's 50 licenses and time consuming and quite expensive. And how do you get around it? Well, one, you don't host the wallets. Two, for like any off ramp, on ramp, you've got to partner with a licensed firm to provide that for you, right? And that's simple. I mean, you could easily do these things, but it does come at a cost, and it does come at cost to the player, so it makes the platform less saleable, right? For lack of a better word. Finally, you have what I call like micro-laundering issues, right? Because you're set up like a game, right? All these play to earn models effectively are. And you have AML KYC issues, okay? You have like inherent obligations, and especially from a sanctions level, right? Like you can't just onboard anybody. But when you look at how these games get manipulated, like through bots or farms, whatever the case may be, you don't know who you're dealing with, right? And you don't know where payments are going, to whom they're going, and the like. Not to mention just sort of the ancillary thing of, well, the laws of, you know, the US, UK, whatever, aren't the same as the laws of Dubai, right? And so you have like direct prohibitions of this kind of model in places like Dubai. So, which could implicate, you know, what you're doing. So you could, you know, and it has happened, some of these play to earn platforms have like become these like micro laundering, you know, like platforms for washing money, right? Like I don't, you know, how you push a lot of money through, like I don't know, it must be very tedious. But with like these bots and these farms, like you can get like 1 million wallets on there really, really quickly, right? So all in all, right, you know, when you weigh those 3 points, you see why play to earn has largely collapsed just from a regulatory standpoint, right? Because it's a scary environment. From a practical standpoint, you know, the biggest problem has always been the inflationary nature of token rewards, right? And it invites speculators. It really gives you no way to manage the price. And if like there's this earn piece, whether it comes in the form of a token or like even an NFT, well, those rewards become less and less valuable the more and more tokens you have. Not to mention you have speculators out there taking bets against the actual token, which is meant to be a currency, right? So if you don't have like a captive sort of ecosystem, right, where my token has no value like beyond the play to earn based platform, you're going to run into that, right? So outside of like the regulatory concerns, there's just practical concerns. And so what's the solution? Well, the solution is play to own, right? And that's where you see everything sort of shifting, and play to own, which will be the topic of my next video. Play to own looks at it and says, okay, well, fun is the first objective, but you can win something, right? Like you can win something for your efforts and your activities. And that intrinsic value of whatever you win is nominal to nothing or what have you, but you win it, as opposed to by collectively working to do something, you know, whether you collaborate directly with somebody or not, it doesn't exist. So it fails the Howey test, right? And then it also, you work around and look at, you can easily alleviate concerns on the other 2 points that I mentioned, which is the payments laws, FinCEN, MSB, and state money transmission licenses, and then also the micro-laundering aspect, because you can conduct like baseline KYC on withdrawals and stuff like that. So that is the saga of play to earn, how it started, how it works, why it fails largely, how you could probably make it work today, but the better option is play to own, which I will detail ad nauseum in my next video. So definitely hit me up, adamtracy.io. Talk to you next time. Cheers.